Okay, now I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker. So here's a little introduction. Terry Tyldesley, otherwise known as Cat 5, is a writer, musician, performer and producer for the band Feral 5, who are known for experimenting with new tech, including sonified algorithms, playing music tech fest with a 3D printer, and working with AI tools on their most recent album, Truth is the New Gold. Feral 5's music has been featured on BBC Radio 6, Radio X, and included in the list of albums nominated for the Louder Than War Album of the Year. Terry is also a solo artist and collaborator, public speaker and tech consultant who is joining us today to speak about AI, tech in music, making art and promoting yourself as a musician. So please welcome Cat 5.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're joining us today. I'm so excited. It's going to be a really fun talk. So do you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
Yes, but I'll try and keep it brief. So I think we're probably talking about in the context of music and tech. So music and tech have fascinated me from when I was very small, and I started playing guitar when I was little. You know, group classes, she'll be coming round the mountain, and still remember the day when my mum very lovingly and supportingly took me to the guitar shop to buy my first electric. And I've been in and out of bands since then. With music and tech, there was a real galvanizing moment, actually. I don't know how many of you have had galvanizing moments in your lives. Maybe you didn't always realize that was the moment. But I'd formed a new all-female garage punk band, and I needed a new amp. I had a practice amp, I needed a big, mustn't swear, gig amp. And if you would sort of go to the music shops and you're a woman, they were kind of quite dismissive. You know, are you the girlfriend, not are you the artist? And then just to make it even worse, the gear manufacturers on their websites, at that time, loads of them, probably most of them, didn't have any female artists endorsing their gear. So I go and look up an amp company, and I go, oh yeah, who's using it? Guess what? They're all guys. So I used to find myself asking other bands after shows what kit they used and what they liked. And then there's a Johnny Rotten quote, anger isn't energy. And so there was a bit of that as well. And I decided to set up a website about music and tech. And the plan was it was going to be inclusive and accessible, and feature lots of people who don't normally get featured talking about their craft and their gear. So I set it up. It's called Kit Monsters. It's taken a little bit of a backseat recently because I'm quite busy. But, so interviewing lots of women, lots of artists of colour, and just telling us all about how they got their sound. And that can include like, DIY instruments, field recordings, you know, the full 360 picture. How long have I got? As a result of that, I went to the first Music Tech Fest in London, and I felt like I'd found my tribe. It was amazing. It was full of innovators, experimenters, and I became part of that community, performing, reporting, hacking things up, and eventually produced and curated Music Tech Fest in Berlin. And then, as well as still experimenting my own work, I've been gone on to do sort of mentoring and creative technologies producing for other people.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And, you know, as a woman in music tech myself, I, you know, relate so strongly to all those things you mentioned, and we'll chat more about that later. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your involvement with Feral 5 and how that started?
Yeah, sure. So I was on a songwriting course at Premises Studios in London, which was brilliant. Some people are not sure if you can teach songwriting, but I think the very fact of being in a place where space is created for you to think about your craft and collaborate. And I met some interesting people there, including my soon-to-be bandmate, Drew 5, he was playing bass and I was writing lyrics. And so we got together and started the band. And have had some lovely adventures since.
Yeah, amazing. So you use a lot of tech in your music and technology, and so when your first EP Skin came out in 2013, how were you incorporating tech into your music then, and how has this changed over time?
There's been a lot of changes over time. So the first EP was instruments and things from the door as well. But we already had in the works a project about 3D printing. I have to say, in using tech in my work, and the band, it's always about the creative idea and the creative project. So it's not like, I've got a new toy, I'm going to make a thing with this new toy. So I'd been fascinated by 3D printing, and at the time it was very hard to get hold of the printers. You just couldn't really buy them. And a friend had got a kit and put it together, and so they had this 3D printing thing, and it made amazing sounds, a kind of like rattly, drummy kind of sound. So I sampled that, and then went to the 3D print show and discovered that the most interesting thing about 3D printing was the medical uses. People were printing prosthetics for people who hadn't got a leg or something, and cells. And then my mind sort of ran a bit riot, ran away with me, and I thought, well, what happens when you can start 3D printing people? And who's going to be in control of that? Are we going to see strange Lara Croft fantasy women that have been created by tech bros? So I wrote a song called 3D, and we made an EP, and I 3D printed some of the artwork at home, because by that time we got one in our house. And I think it was the first release in rough trade with 3D printed artwork. But since then, if I can I've got a couple other things. We've experimented with brain monitors for live performance, but it all went horribly wrong, and various other things.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And it's so lovely to speak with an artist who's so experimental and is willing to push those boundaries and just try new things all the time, because that's what art is. It's experimentation at its core. So your newest album, Truth is the New Gold, congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
It features both human and AI voices, which links to our topic today. Can you tell us a bit more about how you used AI when making this album?
Yeah. I'd started thinking about AI sometime earlier, before we started doing the album, and I wrote a song called Pet Show about AI robo-companions, and we were trying to sort of imagine what that would sound like. Mad cats were involved, or mad robotic-sounding cats. And the album was exploring truth and trust, and I really wanted to experiment with AI, because it would add another sort of dimension to what's real and what's truthful. And we managed to do a collaboration with some amazing technologists in Berlin called Birds on Mars, and they were experimenting with bespoke voice synthesis. So we decided we'd do a project together, and they created some models based on my voice. The process was quite weird, because I had to give them half an hour of spoken voice. And I thought, what am I going to do? So not sung, spoken. And in the end, I decided to read the album lyrics. And it's really freaky reading your album lyrics when you normally sing them, because of course they sound different and a bit kind of lame. And I sent it over and going, this is very weird. They came back with some models and an interface so it was my AI twin, AI Cat 5, effectively. And I could change sort of pitch and speed and tone. And we did a lot of experimenting, and some of the stuff sounded like dead robots or strange ethereal ghosts. There was a lot of experimentation, while we also thought about what we'd want on the album. And also, I could make it say things that I had never said in real life that weren't in the lyrics. And that was really freaky when we were using it a bit in the studio more as a creative tool. And, I never said that. She sounds like me. So we settled on it as a kind of oracle, as a sort of guiding kind of figure, a character in the album, and sometimes a bit alien-y as well.
That's really interesting. And it's really interesting to hear that there were several voice models given to you, you sort of had the option to like change this around so much, because I think if you don't really know much about it, you think it's so straightforward, like, oh, it makes this one output, this one thing. So it's really cool that you can change it. Did hearing your own voice make you think about the sort of ethical considerations surrounding this sort of voice modeling? And what do you feel generally about AI in music in terms of ethics?
I've got a lot to say about this. I think everyone thinks it's all very black and white, or a lot of people do. Perhaps not on this audience because you're very well informed, but there are a lot of shades of grey. And I think the sort of fundamental principle is that we need to know what the truth is of what we're hearing and seeing. And I think some of the discussions about regulation have, very much centred on that. Are we going to have a sort of kite mark or a watermark? But we really need to know what we're dealing with. And I'm sort of pro AI, but not blindly pro. And I can see that, there are so many issues around the training and around generated music. I think it's very telling that some people who are specialists in music AI have kind of gone in the opposite direction a bit, or gone in a more ethical tech direction. It's also very encouraging. There's a guy called Edrex Norton, and he did a lot of work on AI for TikTok, was a leading developer at Stability AI, and he resigned because he felt that there should be more ethical training. And he set up Fairly Trained, which is a sort of like a register of people doing AI that's fairly trained. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that, hopefully. I think it's really important. And I think also, as artists, I don't think we can expect everyone to do the ethical and campaigning work for us. I think we all have to step up, whether that's through the organizations we're members of, like, say, the Ivors, or on an individual level, because the tech companies are giants and we have to put up a bit of a fight.
No, that's really interesting. So my next question is, for someone who's used AI a lot in the process of making this album and generally experimenting with tech, where do you think this could be going? And actually, where would you as an artist like it to go? What would help you?
I like the idea of being able to do different versions of your own work, kind of resampling yourself with AI in some way. And that was partly inspired by, there's an electronic music legend called Martin Ware, who co-founded Heaven 17 and Human League. And I asked him once what he wanted for Christmas. I was interviewing him for my site. And he said, I'd like an AI that would go through my back catalogue and make sure I didn't repeat myself and perhaps help me rework some of the ideas. I thought, oh, that's quite clever. I think as artists, obviously we're focusing here on music creation, but there's so much more that you have to do, even if you're not a DIY artist, but especially if you are a DIY artist, which I can't even say. So some of the more kind of administrative and business sides of things, like the metadata, which was spoken about earlier, anything that can help with that would be great. I don't really want anyone to write my lyrics for me. I love writing lyrics, but people get stuck. People want inspiration. So I can see that's useful. But there are literally thousands of tools out there. And at the same time as we're getting more into AI in some ways, I think it's very interesting that Beyoncé's latest album is very proudly not using AI, except I think there probably is AI because there's AI in so many of the, so much of the software anyway.
And Beyoncé's new album doesn't have AI, but it does have 8 writers on each song. No shade to Beyoncé, but just saying, AI is a collaboration of our brains and our knowledge and what we already know. And, you can recreate similar things when you have so many people helping you, because it is essentially giving you ideas over and over. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question that's not on the sheet, so get ready. Do you think there becomes a point in music creation where if too much AI is used, it actually detracts from the value of the art? Do you think that if, say, it's made wholly or 90%, 80% by AI, that actually it's like, well, should someone actually be even getting paid for this? Because it's been made by a machine?
Very, very good question. I think, the question of what is art has always been redefined. There was that time years ago when synthesizers came in and were banned from Top of the Pops because they were taking musicians' jobs. I think the problem with AI is more of a huge societal issue, and that's why you've got even tech companies themselves signing up to the White House sheet to be regulated. Please regulate us because we don't know what we're doing. I think one of the real dangers, and there was somebody who spoke earlier from, I don't know if it was a question, talking about it's the people, and it is the people, and we do have very poorly trained AIs, and that's why you've got things like the algorithmic Justice League in America. I think there's a danger of blandification as well, because we know, Spotify, for example, has certain biases and things get more dull. So I'm hoping there's going to be lots of people who'll smash AI around quite a lot and sort of bash things together and create new things we haven't even dreamt of yet.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, now I want to go back to performing live for a second. Can you talk to us a little bit about experimenting and performing with live tech? Do you worry about the trustworthiness of tech, and what do you do when it all goes wrong?
Yes, you have to plan for everything going wrong, but at the same time, any performance is a risk. You can, I don't know, break a key or drop your laptop or whatever. I think, yes, I've had some fun fails. I was given a hacked up Speak and Spell to play at a music tech fest, and the power just went, and I could sing, but I thought, I don't, anyway, so I found a tambourine around the back. We launched our single about sort of dodgy brain science called Neurotrash, and we had these amazing headsets that were due to feed in to the visuals, so we'd have our brainwaves projected, and they were great in soundcheck. Didn't work at all. But it's part of the fun and also the energy. And we've done an interactive audio-visual show for the album, working with an artist and technologist called Jonathan Hogg, and he uses algorithmically generated visuals. And the sort of danger element of it is we get people to use a special hashtag to send in their thoughts on truth via social media, and then he grabs them from the visuals, and then I kind of sing them in this song. So it's all like very much a kind of jam, although we have a sort of basic backing, but I'm just like pulling them off the screen to sing as well. But yes, things can go wrong. Plan for that. I did a wonderful workshop from it was actually the Trans Creative Collective, and they did a workshop on how to use backing tracks. And I realized that at a sort of higher level than mine, people have laptops literally synced so that if something crashes, because everyone uses backing tracks a bit these days, the other one could take over. So yeah, danger, high voltage.
Definitely. And this is a topic that I can talk about for hours, but I wanted to return to the topic of women in music tech. Why does this topic mean so much to you? And can you just tell us a bit more about why you think we need more representation and you're doing more things for women in the industry?
Yes, something I'm very passionate about. And as this is an AI event, I just want to pay a quick tribute to some of the amazing women pioneers in AI, like Holly Herndon, like Portrait XO, and also Bishi as well, who's working on a research project with, I think, Sheffield University. So, women in music. There's been huge progress, really huge progress in recent years, which is great. But we're still very underrepresented. And I think there's been a bit of a turning point, because for ages we knew things were bad. We knew we weren't getting festival slots or people weren't getting signed. And then some wonderful women like Vic Bain from the F List and Female Pressure did some research and quantified all this. And the statistics are horrifying. So I think it's like 20 of people signed to labels, 20% women. Of people signed to publishing, 14%. Members of PRS, 17%. I mean, that's just kind of rubbish at the stage we're at. So there's more work to be done. And at festivals, I'm sure you've all seen the graphics where they sort of, work out how many are women and how many are men. But we've got organisations like Key Change who are trying to change all that. And also, sisters are doing it for themselves and creating their own events and promoting gigs. But it's a lot of extra work if you're a creative to have to sort of, make things happen as well. So, we still need a lot of change. Oh, can I just talk about 2% Rising as well?
Absolutely,
Good,
I was going to mention that, actually.
So, there's an organisation called 2% Rising, which I'm a member of, and it only started a few years ago to create a community and a voice for women and non-binary producers and studio engineers. And it's just the best bunch of people you've ever met. And it all started online, actually, so during lockdowns. And they've become a real voice for producers and engineers, real presence. And a few people are on the board of the Music Producers Guild. And that's creating a lot more visibility. And it's been amazing this year to see that on the Music Producers Guild Awards, 50% of the people shortlisted are women. And I was very excited to be longlisted for self-producing artists. So
yeah, congratulations for that. That's absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Also, can you talk to me about the festival that you have this weekend?
Yes.
It being half... Yeah.
So there's a wonderful woman called Angela Martin, who's in a band called Bug Eye, and she founded a new festival a few years ago called Crocoland. And the sort of plan is to be 50-50 gender balance, both on stage and off stage, so in terms of the crew. And she had one amazing event. It had to sort of lie low for a couple of years, but it's back this weekend in London. And the thing is that she's been interviewed on the radio, like John Kennedy, Radio X, and she says, it's not hard. Why do people say it's hard? These people are there. You're just not reaching out or not finding them. It doesn't have to be hard.
And you know what? It is an industry-wide problem in all of the sectors. There's statistics that are like there's as low as 4% of women as sound engineers, which is like awful. But in live events, it is especially bad because we get told all the time, I don't want to hire women because they can't lift as heavy as men, because they can't work as hard or as fast as men. And it's all just like this big sexist cover-up so they can have their little boys club, really. And it's awful. So when you hear about things like Crocoland that are pushing that boundary and actually defying these expectations, it's incredible. So I wanted to move on to our next topic of the conference, which is social media. And along with that, being in a band and promoting yourself as an artist. Now, we have a lot of young and aspiring musicians, songwriters, and producers in the room. So I think it's relevant to talk about how you've used social media to kind of, promote yourself and your brand and how your relationship with that has changed.
Yeah, it's interesting, social media, because it's always very fluid and changes very fast, and you kind of don't want to get caught out. And I think for years the advice has been, do one platform really well. But, remember, I mean, obviously it's before any of you were born even, probably, MySpace, and then it was like Tumblr. And so I think you have to sort of keep a careful eye on things and bag your name on some of the new sites. But it's been fun to experiment, because there was, I can't even remember what it's called now because it's so long ago, there was a thing with little videos, and was it part of Twitter? Or anyway, and
Is it Vine?
Sorry?
Vine.
That's it, thank you,
Yeah.
Vine. And so we used that to make a music video. We got people to do a hashtag it was for Skin, our first release, and do these 7-second videos, and then we grabbed them and turned it into a music video of their skin. So it's fun to use it creatively. I think, and also it's interesting talking to other music industry gurus, because there's one in particular who was a mentor with me on the Jump EU music market accelerator. And he used to say, oh, TikTok, yeah, people blow up, but they can't fill a room. And then most recently it's, yeah, TikTok, they blow up, and then they sell the venue out in 5 seconds. So it is changing, and I think you have to try and wrestle control as an artist. And that's why I think some of the very basics are so important, like having your own mailing list so that you can contact your fans. Because a lot of these platforms are designed to keep you and the fans away from each other because they want to own the relationship and monetize that relationship. So I think it's, keep your wits about you. I mean, I can't say that we're like regularly going viral. We're quite sort of niche in what we do. But yeah, it's always, it's always fun to put stuff out there.
No, that's great. And as someone who loves to use tech, do you have a favorite out of all the social media platforms that have kind of come and gone?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I mean, I enjoy Instagram a lot. I do some TikTok, but not as much as I probably should. I think, yeah, I mean, I can't say it's a complete love affair with any of them, because also they change the rules and they don't let you know. And 1 minute you can do something, and the next, why is that not working? Is, do I need a better phone? And it's no, they've changed the rules again.
Yeah.
So
they get quite frustrating sometimes. So yeah, so for this new release you just did, you signed to the independent label Reckless Yes in 2023. Why did you decide to get signed? Why did you sign with an independent label? And can you tell us a bit about what this journey was like for you, what you felt the benefit was of signing to a label, and just why you made that decision, really?
Okay, I think the decision wasn't entirely ours. So we've been DIY releasing from the very beginning, and we'd enjoyed that. And also, we're very lucky early on, we got played on BBC Radio 6, and so it made us feel, yeah, there's some, you can do this without a label. But we knew of this label, Reckless Yes, because we had some of our favourite bands were signed to it, and it's a small independent label that's run very ethically, and that was important to us. And also, they did beautiful vinyl album releases. We thought, oh, we'd love that. We'd put out this EP before, and it was a bit of a nightmare, DIYing a vinyl EP, 12-inch. But anyway, and we were absolutely thrilled when we had some conversations with them, and they loved our music, and we thought they really got us. Yeah. So we loved working with them. It was lovely to have this album out. It's actually on eco vinyl, and there was a yellow version and a black version. But also, I mean, we were fairly realistic. We weren't going to be candidates for a major label because, we're older, we have a sort of certain sound. But, if you do get signed to a major, you've obviously got that mighty promotion behind you, which can be really brilliant. So, but I also think it's also interesting to see, like Ray, I don't know how many of you know the story of Ray, but she was signed to a label, her music never got released. And when she finally escaped and her music got released, she's absolutely smashing it. I was delighted to vote for her lots in the Brit Awards, and she won $1 million. So I think you've got to have your wits about you, yeah. Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so how has your last year been since releasing the album?
It's been brilliant. It was a kind of, I think one of the things we'd spoken about before was whether people sort of picked up on the AI elements when the album was released. And they didn't, and we were a bit surprised, actually. And we weren't sure if people didn't know what to make of it, like, is this good, is this bad, should we be liking this, should we not be liking this? And then people did start picking up, so it's a joy to come to an event like this and talk to all of you. And get interviewed on BBC News. They had a story about Spotify and AI, and they wanted me to talk about the album and what I thought about Spotify not agreeing to ban AI. And I said, well, AI is already on Spotify. Do you know what I mean? It's like AI-generated tunes. You can't shut the door now. Yeah. But yes, getting in the albums of the year list from Louder Than War, which is quite a big music blog, was a real joy to us because we were among people like Young Fathers and Blur and Christine and the Queen, so that was an honour.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been good, and got lots more things in the pipeline.
Okay, and my final question is, are you working on new music? And if so, is it made with AI assistance?
That's a very good question. The answer is I'm always working on new music. I've got a backlog. But yes, and I'm being either stupid or brave and playing a set this weekend of all new tunes. I haven't worked with AI on these ones because creatively I didn't quite feel right for these new ones. But I can't say they're not got any AI in because, some of the software I've used obviously has AI in, so there we go.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been so great. You can find Kat very easily on all social media platforms, and she'll also be at Crokerland this weekend.
Sunday. Opening the second stage on Sunday, very early.
Wonderful. So I'd like to turn it to the audience now for questions.
How you doing? I really appreciate your panel, and I love some of your perspectives, but one thing I really wanted a bit more clarification on, I found pretty interesting, was I wanted to hear more about what you thought of Spotify biases and how they've affected you, and just kind of the specifics of what that looks like, because that's interesting.
It's very interesting. Also, I had a whole role a few years ago. I was chair of the board of an ethical streaming cooperative called Resonate, which was trying to get fairer streaming on the agenda and create a new platform. So it was a kind of David and Goliath kind of situation, but a very exciting thing to be part of. So I spent a lot of time looking at Spotify. I think with the biases, there's been research done, like if you're a country artist and you're a woman, it would be very hard to make on a country playlist. But also, sometimes there's been recent research as well that shows that Spotify claims, I'm sorry, I'm getting too excited now. Spotify claims that you can put in your track and it'll be considered for an editorial playlist, blah blah blah. And you think, great, I'm in with a chance. And then people do the analysis of what gets on the lists, and it's like a few management agencies, and you've virtually got no chance at all of getting on a Spotify playlist if you're a sort of DIY artist or on a smaller label. So I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and they've been demonetizing, obviously, the tracks that aren't getting so many plays. And in terms of the bias, I haven't got all the figures at my fingertips, but I know particularly, the country music research has been done. I don't know, how do you find it? Have you had issues with it yourself?
As far as the biases, not actually. That kind of leads into what I was going to say next. I've definitely seen what you're talking about as it pertains to pushing music and kind of not seeing as far as like editorial playlists and playlisting. We've definitely found more as far as our avenues outside of going straight through the websites, which based off of your answers to the questions about social media earlier, it seems like you guys kind of found a similar bit of success and way forward with. I was gonna ask kind of what was you guys' process as far as like marketing outside of social media and outside of Spotify in order to like continue doing what you're doing?
In terms of marketing, videos, clips, I'm not the kind of person who enjoys telling people what I have for my breakfast. I don't go down to that very sort of day-to-day level because I've usually always got a visual concept in my head. I think it's important to remember, old school methods and have that in the mix, whether that is the mailing list, flyers, but also so much of music promotion and growth, and I think it was mentioned earlier on this morning, is about connections. And networking can sound frightening. We're not networking, we're hanging out. So, and there used to be a thing where if you went to a gig where there was a BBC Six presenter, you could just like slip them a CD, and they'd love that. They wanted CDs in the age of streaming in their pocket, and then they could say, I got this CD off this artist. So that kind of dropped off a bit in the pandemic. But I think you do need to be aware of that and try to go to events. But also, other artists. Other artists are your friend. You can do events with them, you can do gig swaps. So I think it has to be a very sort of mixed offering.
That's amazing, and thank you for that, genuinely. I think the in-person connection is a wonderful thing, and thanks for saying that.
Okay, oh, and badges. Badges, they're cheap, but they're wonderful. Everyone loves a badge. Just have badges. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that question. That was awesome. Any other questions? Lily?
Just going back to your website that you set up to promote people who aren't, hang on, let me get my words out properly, to promote the equipment that people who aren't usually shown. I know you said that you promote females and that sort of, do you promote like people with disabilities or stuff like that, and what equipment they use, or is it sort of working towards that bit? Yeah.
Yes, in that people we've interviewed have had disabilities, but also in terms of the equipment, we haven't like got a special section, but again that sort of comes with the territory. So, for example, there's at Centre for Digital Music at Queen Mary University. They do a lot of work with charities, including ones like the One-Handed Instruments Trust, and they make a lot of prototypes of equipment that's easy to play if you've got accessibility needs. So we have in that way, yeah. And also, the other thing I should say is a lot of the research that gets done for instruments with special needs has huge, potential in a much wider way. There's a jazz musician called Clarence Adu who had a terrible accident and couldn't play. I can't remember. I think he was a trumpeter, and he couldn't play anymore. And somebody created a breath-controlled kind of synthesizer for him to be able to play. And I think he's part of the para orchestra. So we do like to sort of highlight work that's going on. Yeah.
That's really cool. Awesome. Thank you very much. Any more questions from anyone? No? Okay, well, thank you so much, Kat. It's been such a great talk, and we've loved having you. So if you do have any more questions, you're hanging out for the rest of the day, right?
Yes,
awesome.
yes, I am.
Awesome, we'll be around.
Thank you so much. This has been a brilliant day so far, and I know there's lots more to come.
No worries. Can we have a round of applause for Cat 5, please? Thank you. Thank you very much.